This video is on our chapter of data analysis and statistics, and I'm going to show you how to calculate the mean, mode, median, lower quartile, upper quartile, the range, your IQR, and your standard deviation by using your calculator. When we're looking at the mean, we denote it by using an X bar. So you might want to write that down just to remember because it is a little different. The mode is the value that occurs the most. The median is the middle value. And some new words would be the lower quartile, which we denote using Q1, and then the upper quartile, which we use Q3. And what those mean is when you find the median, now the lower quartile is the middle value of all of the data that was less than the median, where the upper quartile is the middle value of all of the data that was larger than the median. The range is a word that we're familiar with too because that's the difference between the greatest value and the least value. So we can write here max minus min. Now the interquartile range, we usually say just the IQR. That's taking Q3 minus Q1, so you have to find those numbers before we can do that. And then the standard deviation, so that's a measure that describes the difference between data value and the mean. So the way that we write that and the way you'll see it in the calculator is it kind of looks like a fancy O with an X. So there is a way to do it by hand, but I'm going to show you how to do it using the calculator, and I have the steps listed here for you to look at if you would like to. And then we're going to talk about an outlier, which is a familiar word, so that's a value that is either much greater than or much less than most of the other values in a data set. So sometimes when we're looking at numbers, we can usually see which one maybe looks weird in the data set, like one is way bigger or way smaller than all of the other ones, usually looking at like temperatures or whatever. But to actually prove that it's an outlier, you have to use an equation or like two different formulas here. So this one, I'm going to rewrite these because the way that they're written is a little bit confusing if you're going to remember PEMDAS. So it's Q3 plus, and then I'm going to put the 1.5 times the IQR in parentheses. And then it's Q1 minus, and then parentheses, 1.5 times the IQR. So let's just do one example of this. So this says find the central tendency and dispersion, and we're looking at the daily high temperatures from the week of June 21st through June 27th. So it goes Sunday through Saturday here, and it asks us to find the mean, our upper and lower quartiles, the median, mode, range, IQR, standard deviation, and then look to see if we have any outliers. So a strategy for here would maybe be to write out what we're looking for. And sometimes I like to stick with the words that are a little bit more familiar first. So let's write down the mean. And remember, that's going to look like an X bar in the calculator. Then the median, which in the calculator, that's going to look like MED. And then the mode, we're actually going to have to find that one by ourselves. That won't be in the calculator. And then the other word we remember is the range. So then over here, let's write our two quartiles. And then we can find the IQR after that. Then our standard deviation, which remember, when you look in your calculator, it's going to look like a fancy O with an X. And then after that, we'll look for any outliers. So the way you do this in your calculator, and you can look up on the page before if you want to see the steps, but the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click the Stat button. So you do need to enter your data. So first you can click Edit. Now I already have some stuff here, so I'm just going to clear that. And I'm going to enter in each of the numbers. So again, I clicked Stat, and then I went right to Edit. So I'm going to type in 76, 74, 70, 69, 70, 75, and 78. Once I have all of my numbers added into my list here, I need it to calculate for me so I can figure out what these are. So I'm going to click on Stat, and then you're going to go, if you look at the top there, do you see how Edit is highlighted? You're going to go over one to Calc, and then you're going to click the first one for one variable stats. Now, depending on what type of calculator you have, if you have a TI-84, after you click that, you're going to have to go down using your down arrow and click Enter. If you have a TI-83 or one that looks like this, you could just press Enter right away if your data is in the first list. But here I'm going to click Second and then 1 because it's kind of like you're telling it what to do. I have to tell it to calculate these stats for the list 1 that I entered. Then I'm going to click Enter. And I can see almost all of my numbers. So if you look first, there's that X bar. That tells me that the mean is 73.14. The median, MED, you're going to have to scroll down with your arrow. I go over a little bit here. That's 74. Now the mode, it doesn't tell us that, but that's the one that happens the most. So if you look at your data, I can see that 70 degrees happens twice, so that's my mode. Then the range, that's your biggest number minus your smallest number. Now you can look at your data and say, okay, well, I can see that my biggest number is 78 and the smallest one is 69. But let's say you had a lot of data that you entered. It does tell you, if you look, it does show you on the calculator which one was your max and your min. Okay, now you can see Q1 is 70, Q3 is 76, and remember, we talked about the IQR, that's Q3 minus Q1. So that's 76 minus 70, so that's 6. Then the standard deviation is right there, it's 3.22. So we found almost everything except it does want us to find some outliers. So if you look at the temperatures, I mean, there isn't anything that stands out to me that looks like, whoa, that must be an outlier or something like that, but we do have to prove it. So the way that we do that is with the equations that I showed you up above here. So I'm going to write them out for you. So we needed to do, I'm going to make a box here. So we needed to take Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Then we needed to take Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So we said that Q3 was 76 plus 1.5, and we said the IQR was 6, so times 6. And then Q1 was 70. And you know, if you're having a hard time with this, I would just say just type it in the calculator as is, so it can just look just like this. So I can see that it's 85, and then 61. So what that tells me is all of the numbers in my data set have to be between 61 and 85. If any of these numbers were smaller than 61 or bigger than 85, it would have to be an outlier. But because that isn't happening here, there are no outliers. Okay, and if you want any extra practice, you can go ahead and give this problem a try. Otherwise, that's all I have. Thanks.